In the 1990s, the US government started a project called the Montauk Project. The project was a successor to the Philadelphia experiment and was connected to the MK Ultra. During this project, they tried to alter the timeline, distort the space-time continuum, achieve time travel and telekinesis, and much more. There are reports of experiments even more inhuman than Frankenstein. People and children were tortured, experimented on, and later killed. Even the famous show Stranger Things was originally going to be named Montauk, and the character 11 was inspired by the Montauk Boys, kids who were brought to Montauk for experiments. Now, this sounds more like fiction, but there is evidence. There are testimonies from people who worked on this project. People who lived in the vicinity have spoken about it. And how can we forget the mysterious creature that people found near the shore? So, let's dive into each and every part and find out what the real Montauk Project was. The Montauk Project is the most famous experiment involving secret government agencies, mind control, time travel, human-animal hybrids, and telekinesis. Now, this could easily be dismissed as a conspiracy theory or a plot from a science fiction novel. But somehow, information got out. Whistleblowers came forward and talked about it, and people near the site reported seeing human-animal hybrids washing up on shore. Now, before I tell you more about this project, let's first try to figure out what was happening before the Montauk Project and what events preceded it. So, let's start from the beginning. We go back to World War II. The USA was trying to figure out different ways to defeat Germany. The government asked two of the most brilliant minds to partner and work on something big. Einstein and Tesla got involved in what is called the Philadelphia experiment. The experiment was straightforward. Work on the space-time continuum and try to make Navy ships invisible. Invisible to the naked eye and invisible to any radar. Tesla and Einstein nearly succeeded in making the ship invisible. In 1943, they tested the newly developed technology on the USS Eldridge and made it invisible with crew on board. Or at least, they thought they had. When the ship reappeared after a few seconds, they witnessed something horrific. Soldiers were fused into the ship's structure. They were terrified, screaming, and almost all of them were dead. The soldiers who survived explained that the ship had traveled to another dimension. It was not fully a success, but it was not entirely a failure either. Though they lost the soldiers, they had no choice but to shut the experiment down. But this opened the door to time travel and teleportation, which they would later explore further at Montauk. After this, the Cold War began. In 1953, the USA discovered that Russia and China had developed a drug that could brainwash people. The US had to respond. The CIA then launched another project called MK Ultra. They experimented with mind control and, in the process, tortured and experimented on many humans. They tried to determine whether they could control human minds through chemical or psychological methods. The project was officially shut down in 1973, but that's just what was reported to the public. Behind the scenes, they made it more extreme. They combined the technology from the Philadelphia experiment and MK Ultra and launched a new project called the Montauk Project. The project aimed to develop technology for psychological warfare and mind control, time travel experiments, opening portals to other dimensions, using psychic individuals as human transmitters, remote influence over large populations. At first, most people assumed it was just a radar station, a mundane Cold War antenna on a cliff. But here is what you notice when you look closer. That radar tower was massive, far more powerful than a simple detection system would need to be. According to testimonies, certain electromagnetic frequencies could affect the human brain, altering emotions, inducing fear, loyalty, or confusion. The radar tower was secretly repurposed to broadcast those frequencies, not to detect aircraft, but to influence people. Inside the underground bunkers, something even stranger was happening. Scientists were building a device called the Montauk chair. The concept was extraordinary. A person with strong psychic abilities would sit in the chair. The chair would amplify their thoughts, and the machine could turn those thoughts into something real. And that leads to something even darker. The Montauk Boys. This is the part of the Montauk story that most people do not expect, and it is the most disturbing. According to testimony from Preston Nichols, an engineer who claimed to have worked inside the facility, the project required special human subjects, children. They allegedly targeted homeless teenagers and kids with no records, no one who would be reported missing. The alleged experiments involved psychological conditioning, memory suppression, and sensory deprivation. The goal was to completely break down a child's personality and rebuild it, creating someone who would follow any command. They were trying to build their own version of 11, or the Winter Soldier. And here is one well-known connection. The Netflix show Stranger Things was originally developed under the working title Montauk. The character 11, a girl with psychic powers taken by a secret government lab, is directly inspired by these so-called Montauk boys. Now see, every dark program needs people: scientists, engineers, and operators. A few courageous individuals with a conscience eventually became whistleblowers. One such person was Preston Nichols. He was an engineer who, years after the project ended, began recovering suppressed memories of working inside the facility. In 1992, he published a book called The Montauk Project: Experiments in Time, which described the chair, the time portals, and the experiments in detail. Then came Duncan Cameron, described as the primary psychic operator, the person who actually sat in the Montauk chair during the most extreme experiments. The other key figure was Alfred Bielik, who claimed a connection to both the Philadelphia experiment and Montauk. He said he personally traveled to the years 2137 and 2749 during the experiments. After these testimonies emerged, people began to question and investigate. Then, in 2008, something washed up on a beach near Montauk. A decomposing creature with a strange body shape that no one could immediately identify. Photos went viral and the internet exploded. People began calling it the Montauk Monster, and some claimed it had escaped from the underground labs. Scientists later concluded it was most likely a decomposed raccoon or dog. But the mystery only added fuel to an already burning legend. There is also the broader historical context to consider. The CIA's MK-Ultra program was real, confirmed, and declassified. The government ran secret psychological experiments on real people for decades. That is not a theory, it is documented history. And if MK-Ultra existed and was hidden for decades, what else might still be hidden? You might be wondering, what ultimately happened to this project? Remember how psychics sitting in the Montauk chair could apparently bring their thoughts into reality? They were channeling psychic energy into an interdimensional portal. These experiments reportedly created a time portal connected to the year 1983, which psychic operators could channel at will. Then, one day, a psychic operator using the Montauk chair lost control and imagined a terrifying creature during one of these experiments. The machine turned that thought into reality, releasing the creature inside the facility, much like what happens in Stranger Things. The government had no choice but to shut the project down. But I don't believe the operation was truly shut down. Yes, it was closed on paper. But if you possess technology like that, you would not simply destroy it. You would try to make it more advanced. That's human nature. And somewhere on Earth, in some secret facility, scientists may still be experimenting.